Hey everybody, this is Everyday Commentary, and this is a different kind of video. This video is a video overview of the Worksharp mounting plate that I designed and made in my workshop. In total, this project takes not very many tools and not very much time, and the end result is a mounting plate that really helps you better use and store the Ken Onion Worksharp. So let's talk a little bit about why I think I needed this. The Ken Onion Worksharp is a really great way to sharpen knives. The problem is, there are two real problems with storage. First of all, it's a really unusual shape. I mean, as you can see, it's just not a flat cube, and that makes it hard to store. The second problem with the Ken Onion Worksharp is 1, 2, 3. This thing just collects belts. So, you know, if you run out of a belt, generally speaking, the belts are sold in variety packs, which means you're going to get a bunch of extra belts. And so storing all of those belts in a way that was easy to access but didn't like mar or mutilate the belts was a challenge. And so what I designed was this mounting plate. The idea is that this mounting plate will hook up to, using these two holes, a pegboard, and the whole thing will sit on a pegboard. And when you need to have access to it, you can just grab the handle and pull it down. This little tab over here lets you store the cord, and then let me show you. This is the thing that I like the most about them. On the back, you have a place to store all of your belts. The last thing that this little raised area does is it lets you route the cable for the Worksharp up and under the Worksharp and out of the way of the belts. As you can see, I've had 1 and 2 different accidents with the Worksharp. But by having it so that the belts, or that the cord routes out underneath it, it limits the ability for that to happen. So what do you need to make this? Well, you need some kind of saw so you can cut the pieces. You need some kind of glue and screwdriver so that you can screw the rails on. I used a pass load 18 gauge nailer that I have, and it really helped speed up the process, and I'll show you why in a second. So let me put this aside, and we can take a look at the prototype. So this is the prototype design, and as you can see, there's 2 holes here, and those 2 holes match up with, let me take the belts off. Those 2 holes match up with these 2 thumb screws. This is actually the inspiration for the whole project. These 2 thumb screws have been sitting in my spare parts bin for about 20 years. When I found out that there were holes on the bottom of my Worksharp and that those thumb screws worked, it gave me the idea of making this mounting plate. So these 2 holes here seat the thumb screws, and you can tighten them with your fingers. So you can take this whole thing apart without any tools. So these 2 screws, that's a critical dimension. You need to make sure that those work. The other critical dimension is that I put a rail on this so that there's some storage and some space underneath it. And you need to make sure that the rail, the thickness or height of the rail is equal to the combined thickness of this board and this the plate that hooks on to the pegboard. So you're going to have to cut this piece of wood down so that this piece of wood and this plate together are the same height as the rail. The third critical dimension is this piece. As you can see on the actual unit, I have a bunch of little stays for the belts. And what they are is they're simply a piece of wood that's cut off and rounded over at the top. And then another thinner piece of wood that's rounded over at the top as well to sort of hold everything in place. This is actually not part of the prototype. This is part of the actual model, and I didn't realize this until later. But by making it so that this piece of wood is not as wide as a belt, the belts would not lay flat. They kind of sat like this on the actual unit. So I increased the thickness of this dimension, and now, as I can show you on the actual model, the belts lay completely flat and tucked away. The one thing that I would tell you is you don't necessarily have to round them over, but by rounding them over, you'll make sure that the belts don't develop any weird folds or kinks that will make them hard to use when you're running them on the Worksharp. So that was an overview of this entire project. It probably took me an hour. If you have scraps, you can easily get everything done. I have this piece right here is, let me see, I'll just measure it right now. So So that piece is about 1.5 inches deep. And that's really the only thing that I used as like a dimension. Everything else was like, this dimension is not critical. This dimension is not critical. Obviously it can be smaller than the Worksharp or it won't work. But this is the one piece where it gave me enough space to hold the belts and enough, you know, of distance off of the table to route the cord. But it also lets it lay flat and hang on pegboard pretty well. So that is a video overview of one of my EDC workshop projects. I have another in the works. It is a valet tray. And once that's underway, I'll probably make a video about that as well.